Hi, welcome to Ladies of Another View. I'm back. I'm here today with Jamie and Jan. It's mine and Jamie's first time being together, so
This is exciting.
we'll see how it works. I'm expecting great things, I'm sure. And we have a very exciting guest on today who's going to tell us amazing things. I'm going to toss it to you, Jan, because you made this connection.
Well, first of all, we'd like to welcome Niko Guillermo to the show. So glad you could join us.
It's a pleasure to be here.
I have been researching home rule charters and petitioning process and that type of thing in our area. And when researching, I found Niko online, and he has been doing some amazing things. First of all, what is a professional petitioner, and how did you get involved in that?
It's a niche industry that is related to the lack of volunteers that all of these causes around the country need, like your home rule charter there in North Dakota. And because there's a lack of volunteers, because groups have to start kind of from scratch in order to get enough support and then to gather enough signatures in time, there is an industry that exists for those who are skilled at gathering signatures. And I just happened to find myself at the right place at the right time. I had some prior experience doing some kind of lobbyist work for the people. It was door-to-door fundraising and organizing. So I had an understanding of politics in general, but when I learned about the petitioning process and how much more powerful it was, I just started to go completely on that path, and I turned it to my career for over 16 years, traveling around the country to help qualify initiatives, referenda, and recalls.
It is hard to get people involved. You know, my husband ran for county commissioner, and it is hard to get signatures. Not only is it hard to get volunteers, but you can't go to the mall. You can't go to the Capitol because, so people don't want you asking them to sign things. But in reality, we should sign things to allow people to make decisions and vote and at least bring it up for conversation. And so all the way around, not only is it hard to get people to petition, and I guess it's the way the world is today, right? There aren't people that want to go out and volunteer and ask people for signatures. And so tell us how it works.
Well, it is exactly what you said. It's hard work. And how it works is by having that grit to go out there and talk with strangers. It's challenging. And then you mentioned you're not allowed to petition at the mall or the Capitol. There's really, there is some there was case law that says we do have the right to petition at certain areas if there's like a shared mall with multiple stores. This goes back to a federal case in California between a Trader Joe's, Prune Yard Mall, and some petitioners. And they took it all the way to the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court sided with the petitioners, saying this is part of our First Amendment, and that if you have an area where there's multiple stores, you're actually inviting the public to be there. It's not a private location like Costco where you have to have a membership. It's private. But Walmart, for example, also lost a lawsuit about this because they have multiple businesses within the Walmart that invite people to convene there. So the Supreme Court case says we do have a right to be there, but it has to be challenged in more states. It's only really been stood up for in California, Washington, and Massachusetts. Everywhere else, you do have to kind of have this grit about you of understanding the Constitution, the Bill of Rights, the First Amendment in the state that also says we have the right to petition the government, and that it's not the same as a trespass. Because if you look at the statutory codes for trespass, it's very specific. You have to be doing something unlawful, and they can't just give you a case for public nuisance like they've tried. They actually threw me in jail for a day under false accusations in California. I paid my way out. It would have been waiting for like 5 days to see the judge, but when I finally went to court, the judge didn't show up. Why? Because they know that there's so much case law and that they cannot say it's a public nuisance if you're carrying a petition or any kind of like manufactured crime they try to sit you with. You're not doing anything unlawful. And so it is a challenge for people to deal with rental cops, police officers who don't know the law, or managers trying to kick you out of their stores when there is in fact case law protecting us to be there. And
Okay, Niko, I don't want to hog the conversation, but I want you to know while you were on the screen, we are looking at each other going, wow. We did not know. And that you can't, that you can go to the mall. Legally, you can go to the malls to get signatures, and nobody does because we get kicked out. And
Yeah,
so you're
and
telling
they
us
do
something.
have that right. It becomes a civil matter, and they can ask you to leave and try to give you a trespass, which is a real criminal charge. But if it got to that point of going to court, they find that the real statutes related to trespass have to do with something criminal. And so,
Yes.
there's a real chance you could win, but it's a big hassle. And, to win for these kind of issues has won the petitioners in these cases millions of dollars, because it's against the First Amendment right for them to say you're trespassing when you're just exercising your freedom of speech.
Well, right now we have a group of gals that has been sitting up at a local mall that we have in Bismarck here for the last 2 weeks, garnering signatures, and they will continue through the end of the month. And the mall has afforded them a space and a table out in the open area in the mall to gather signatures. So we know that it's legal and that it can be done. And there are other entities that have stated the same thing that you've said, where they say, well, you can't, this is private property. But just like at a hospital or a clinic, if you're on the sidewalk, you can do whatever you want if it's a public sidewalk.
See, Jan, you say you did know, but I mean, I've had that experience where you're trying to get signatures and you've been told you can't do that here. And a lot of times there's a store that lets you, they give you permission to sit in front of their store, but you're saying the mall gave you permission?
Yes.
Because we have been in a situation where we've been told, no, you can't get signatures here. So,
Yep.
yeah, very interesting.
I'm learning all kinds of stuff
Yeah.
today.
I've been stopped often, even with police officers who claim that we're trespassing or not allowed to petition at a public park, and that's shocking. Sometimes right outside of farmers markets on the public street, they'll tell you cannot petition here. And so the people that want to involve themselves in this activism really have to understand their laws and their free speech rights, and look up, for example, the Prune Yard Act or other cases. And Jan, I can forward you some of the case law behind this, like the one time when Walmart lost. But it's an uphill battle to go against real police that will potentially arrest you for trespass or send you to court over it and try to give you a criminal charge. So it is good to know how to kind of bend the rules a little bit. And I guess that's part of what being a professional petitioner is about. We shouldn't be scofflaws running from the law when we're working to protect the Constitution. And really, that's my angle. Is the app that I'm working on is designed to organize people that are conservative leaning for the principles of limiting government, because this process of ballot initiatives and referenda has been used by the left in cases in attempts to actually increase the power of government, but it's also been used by conservative groups to limit government. In fact, it was from the very formation is when it began in North Dakota with what was called a non-partisan league that was neither liberal nor conservative, really. But if you look at their policies, they were very much more aligned with like libertarian values. They wanted to limit the Federal Reserve from printing debt to the states to issue money, which how every other state works. And they wanted to limit the railroads from outsourcing grain into their state, putting the farmers out of business. So it's very much to protect their money and their markets. And it somehow got turned into this idea. They called it the progressive era, but progressivism didn't mean like liberals today. At the time, it meant progressively having more power to limit government through the means of this initiative and referendum, which had been theorized. And it's been in philosophy for years and years prior, at the beginning of the forming the Constitution. But it wasn't until states started moving west that they realized that they really needed to have in their Constitution a way to have checks and balances for people to limit the government when the government isn't doing it themselves. Because, waiting for the government to regulate themselves that's an uphill battle.
Blockchain technology. We've heard a lot about it. Most of us don't understand. Can you give us a little quick course on it?
Sure. It's essentially the first technology that has decentralized its core of data processing in a way that's unique among technologies. It actually is the evolution of technology and the highest type of technology in the sense that it cannot be hacked. And that's essentially why Bitcoin has value as a money, because even the top, let's say, highest paid military scientists with DARPA cannot hack Bitcoin. They've attempted. Trust me, everyone wants to hack Bitcoin. If they could cash out billions of dollars from the blockchain to their own wallets, they would love to, but they can't because of decentralization as a concept. And due to that impregnable ability, it's being used among, I think it's statistically like 60% of international businesses right now are investigating into it, investing in it, because they want to use it to protect their data. Data is very valuable to companies. In California, for example, they have a law that I think Facebook violated recently, but where if their data is hacked, they are now subject to criminal fines. And so companies are scrambling to figure out how do they prevent themselves from being hacked. Remember when Target had everyone's social security numbers hacked?
Yes.
This was years ago.
Victim.
So companies are looking to secure their data in a way that can't be hacked, and they're investing in blockchain technology, not just Bitcoin, but there's other aspects of it. And what it represents is a new era of privacy and protection, even though there is some transparency. For example, if I send some Bitcoin around, it will be followed and tracked everywhere it goes. But to whom owns that Bitcoin, if they're connected directly to the blockchain itself, it's done in an anonymous way. In the way that it's designed to work. This is going to play over into many other aspects of our life. It's being used in transportation. It's being used in energy services to transport electricity, like for the solar industry. It's being used in all kinds of things. And most prevalent right now is banking. In the revolution of banking, personal services you can have known as DeFi, which means decentralized finance. Ethereum, which is the #2 cryptocurrency, created this. And basically it means that money can be allocated into various positions, and it can even be allocated in a way linked to the dollar. So a stable coin is a concept where you have a digital dollar. There's multiple versions of these, and they can be allocated to different places by code, which, because it cannot be hacked, can serve banking functions far more efficiently than any banks. And they're actually able to create financial applications now that are able to create yield on US dollars from 12% a year to 15, 20%, even 40% a year and more, because of the way they're able to basically create their own monetary system with these cryptocurrencies. It's very fascinating. It's sweeping the world. Bitcoin is the #1 cryptocurrency that's financial value is larger than most of the countries in the world. I think it's like, if it were a country, it's around the 6th largest country in the world right now, as far as a market cap, how much it's worth.
We have a short video here that kind of explains how you're taking blockchain technology and you're merging it with initiated measures. Let's take a look.
How's everybody doing? I'm Niko Guillermo, founder of Liberty Economy, the direct democracy consulting firm in Arizona, and I want to go global. That's why I'm launching the app and a cryptocurrency for a decentralized application that cannot get shut down, because direct democracy challenges everything the government does. It is the process that allows the people to vote on the exact policy changes we want, and even gives us the power to say no and limit government ourselves instead of waiting for them at all. So we need to have direct democracy worldwide because the government is getting out of control. We need to limit the federal government. We need to limit the state. We need to be able to create our own policy to regulate them. And that's exactly what the applications I'm creating will do. So the technology is here. What Bitcoin is to the monetary system, the project I'm working on called Democracy DAO, is to the government. And we are going to decentralize it, disseminate it to the people so that we can make the future we deserve. Thanks for joining us. Subscribe and leave your comments below of what changes you want to see.
So,
interesting.
Yeah, so that makes it accessible to everyone, correct?
Yeah, the goal is to organize people and then using blockchain voting tools, which just allow us to do polling, to vet our ideas and concerns about what's going on, and then know that it's not being changed. Like, that's the thing. If you did a Twitter poll, it's not on the blockchain, and hypothetically they could change the polling numbers. We're all concerned with hacked votes. And, you know, this is the voting machines are using the oldest type of technology. Blockchain, if applied to voting, could create a duplicate backup set that gives you a number to correlate with those paper ballots to know for sure if those paper ballots were messed with, or those voting machines, which I personally caught when I did an audit. It's on that same YouTube channel I have, where the machine was off at my table. You know, and this is ridiculous. We need to use the best technology, not this outdated technology. So we're going to be using blockchain polling and voting and discussion groups like social media that allow us to write up whatever we want and not have it censored, to be able to share it with anyone and not have it censored. And the coolest part is you get paid in these cryptocurrencies for creating content, for hosting polls, for participating and writing up your arguments in favor of policy or against policy. And that's exactly what I'm going to tap into. The whole community would be able to use a whole consortium of blockchain voting apps and social media that are not censored, and we earn cryptocurrency having dialogue. And it's just an added benefit that we could do with other technologies, but they wouldn't have the security and they wouldn't reward us financially. So it's just all part of the benefit of being part of this community to decide our own laws.
This technology is over a lot of our heads. Like I'm struggling listening, and like I understand the concepts, but we don't always have to understand. Like how many people know how most of anything any machine, how do you know how the ATM machine works? So we don't need to know the details necessarily, but how far away are we from this being part of our voting system and voting machines and using blockchain technology? Is it so far out there that nobody's thinking about it, or could this be the near future?
It's definitely been considered. I remember hearing something about Trump mentioning it. The Democratic candidate Andrew Yang mentioned it when he was running. There is a company called Votum that has created a technology for the ballots, exactly. So there's progress being made, but I'm not going to rely on politicians signing their own bills to make sure the vote is secure. That was my concern with Votum, and I talked to their managers. I said, I would love to work with you. I'd love to see it as a ballot initiative. And they kind of hesitated because of my somewhat radical view of not wanting to wait for politicians to do things. And so I'm really prepared. I just need to organize some people in Arizona, and I want to spend the time to draft the bill. I do have some experience writing policy, and I've been successful with 5 out of 6 pieces of policy written. Granted, I had some model legislation to build off. There is model legislation for secure voting, and I don't think it would be that difficult to go from paper ballots to blockchain voting. So it's a matter of writing the legislation, filing it within the state, and organizing people to gather the signatures. And that's what the app I'm launching is going to be about. And that's actually going to be one of the flagship projects, to have blockchain voting, so that any other policies we want to change, we know when we vote on it, they don't mess with it at the ballot.
So is your app up and running right now, or when is that being launched?
It's not up and running. I have the framework based on other technologies that's available for a small group of people that want to join me. And that's great. So I can bring people in and we can start having dialogue without an app launching. That's just going to be extra benefit because it will get some marketing, it can be downloadable for iOS and Android, and it's just going to be a centralized place for education. So the links will be provided in the app. I'm going to be teaching about blockchain technology, what I've done from struggling wanting to fundraise for these projects, learning how to invest in myself, which has been the best thing. Instead of waiting for others to donate and contribute to this project, which I attempted in the past, I just started investing into cryptocurrencies and learning it very well. I've been doing it for 2 years, nonstop, essentially, to learn as much as I can to share with others how they can gain wealth in the space and not lose wealth, as best as possible, to use the stable coin mining to get better interest than you get at a bank. And my vision is if a lot more people have more money because they learn cryptocurrency better, which is where it's all going. You have to understand, the more the dollar devaluates from inflation, the more Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies are going to keep going up. So it's inevitable. But I want people to have wealth and learn from this space so that we can then volunteer our time ourselves. If I want to go out and volunteer petitions, I can do that now thanks to some of the income I've saved because of cryptocurrencies.
Well,
And I want other
Niko-
people to have that benefit as well.
Niko Guillermo, thank you so much. This is going to be continued. There's a lot more to learn, and I know it's going to be ongoing.